When a racist cop confronts a Filipino man at the airport, things take an unexpected turn. What happens next will shock you. Watch as the cop instantly regrets his actions. The story opens in a bustling international airport, alive with the chatter of announcements and the shuffle of hurried travelers. Among the crowd is a young Filipino man named Marco, dressed modestly with a neat backpack slung over his shoulder. He checks his boarding pass and passport nervously, glancing up at the departure board to confirm his gate number. Marco exudes a quiet determination, his calm demeanor standing out amidst the chaos of the terminal. Unbeknownst to him, Officer Daniels, a tall, broad-shouldered cop with a stern face, notices him from afar. Daniels adjusts his belt and narrows his eyes, watching Marco intently. His years of service have hardened him, but they've also left him prone to snap judgments. To Daniels, Marco doesn't quite fit in with the image of most passengers passing through the terminal. Instead of seeing a young man traveling with purpose, Daniels sees someone he suspects, without evidence, of wrongdoing. Marco, unaware of the officer's gaze, continues walking, but Daniels begins moving toward him, his face set with suspicion. Despite Marco's calm demeanor and the clear authenticity of his documents, Officer Daniels escalates the situation. "Step aside," Daniels orders brusquely, motioning toward a nearby corner. Marco hesitates but complies, his heart pounding as he feels the eyes of onlookers following him. Daniels begins to search Marco's bag without asking for permission, pulling out neatly packed clothes and a book Marco had brought for the long flight. "This doesn't look right," Daniels mutters, more to himself than anyone else, as he rifles through the bag. Marco, feeling humiliated but determined to keep his composure, softly says, "Sir, I've given you everything you asked for. I haven't done anything wrong." But Daniels ignores him, his suspicion clouding his judgment. Some bystanders, sensing the tension, start pulling out their phones to record the interaction, while others whisper among themselves, debating whether they should intervene. The situation takes a turn when a well-dressed elderly man steps forward from the gathering crowd. His confident stride and calm authority immediately catch everyone's attention. "What seems to be the problem here, officer?" the man asks firmly, his voice cutting through the tension. Daniels, caught off guard, straightens up and replies, "Routine check, sir. Just following protocol." The older man, identifying himself as Mr. Johnson. "What seems to be the problem here, officer?" the man asks firmly, his voice cutting through the tension. Daniels, caught off guard, straightens up and replies, "Routine check, sir. Just following protocol." The older man, identifying himself as Mr. Johnson, a high-ranking airport official, glances at Marco and then at the documents in Daniel's hand. With a stern expression, he says, "Routine? It doesn't look like that to me. This young man has every right to be here, and I don't see any justification for your actions." Daniels stammers, trying to defend his behavior, but Johnson doesn't let him off the hook. "You're not just representing yourself, you're representing the law. This kind of behavior is unacceptable." Marco, visibly relieved, quietly thanks Mr. Johnson, while the crowd murmurs in support. The phones recording the incident capture every moment, ensuring law. This kind of behavior is unacceptable. Marco, visibly relieved, quietly thanks Mr. Johnson, while the crowd murmurs in support. The phones recording the incident capture every moment, ensuring that what happened will not be easily forgotten. The moment is tense as Mr. Johnson orders Officer Daniels to step aside. He apologizes to Marco, stating, "I'm sorry for the inconvenience, young man." "You're free to go." The officer's actions were inappropriate. Daniels, now clearly embarrassed and shaken, mutters a half-hearted apology, but it's clear he's not fully grasping the depth of his mistake. Marco, maintaining his dignity, nods politely, refusing to let the incident ruin his trip. As Marco picks up his bag, he hears the sound of approaching trip. As Marco picks up his bag, he hears the sound of approaching footsteps. A couple of officers, witnessing the commotion, now approach and begin questioning Daniels about his actions. The videos of the incident are quickly spreading on social media, sparking outrage. The airport management launches an internal investigation, and Daniels faces serious consequences. Marco prepares to board his flight. As he glances back one last time at the terminal, he reflects on the ordeal, but refuses to let it define him. His calm response in the face of adversity speaks volumes. Meanwhile, Daniels is left standing in the middle of the airport, his regret evident. He knows his actions were wrong, and the consequences are far from. As the weeks go by, the video of the incident continues to make waves online, drawing both support for Marco and outrage. Meanwhile, Daniels is left standing in the middle of the airport, his regret evident. He knows his actions were wrong, and the consequences are far from. As the weeks go by, the video of the incident continues to make waves online, drawing both support for Marco and outrage toward Officer Daniels' behavior. The airport issues a public statement condemning the officer's actions, vowing to implement better training and awareness programs on racial bias for all staff. Daniels is placed on administrative leave as the investigation continues, and the pressure mounts for him to publicly address his actions. Marco, meanwhile, receives messages of support from people all over the world who are inspired by his composed response. He later participates in interviews, sharing his experience and advocating for kindness and understanding across cultures. We all deserve respect, no matter where we come from, Marco says, his voice calm but firm. In a final twist, Daniels is forced to make a public apology, both to Marco and the community. Standing before the media, he expresses deep regret, admitting his prejudice and the harm it caused. I let my bias control my actions, he confesses, and I am truly sorry. Marco, while grateful for the apology, insists that change is more important than words alone. This shouldn't happen again to anyone, he says, his message resonating with viewers. The story closes with a sense of closure, but also a reminder that biases, though deeply ingrained, can be unlearned, one step at a time. Daniels begins his journey of self-reflection, while Marco heads home, stronger and more determined than ever to make a difference in the world.